Thanks for joining us on our comic book coffee break. I'm Nick Gunning.
I'm Eric Mickles.
Happy New Year, buddy. How you doing?
Good. Happy New Year. It's the 2023 episode of Coffee Break.
Yeah, coffee book coffee break is exactly
what did I
we've always
say?
called it. You
I
said
said
something.
coffee book. Yeah.
Coffee book.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. A coffee table book. We could do a spin-off just about coffee table books. That'd be fun.
Seinfeld did it first. We can't.
You're right.
It's a book that turns into a coffee table.
Turns into a table. I'm drinking some Starbucks holiday blend out of a Christmas gift I got, and it is a Flintstone Kids mug.
Yeah. Nice. Did Boomerang themselves send that to you after you subscribed to them?
They did. I haven't subscribed to them, but I'm going to.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to because I need me some classic Hanna-Barbera just to unwind.
Boomerang, if you're listening, just send Nick a free subscription. He will give you so much free publicity just from posting what he's watching every day.
That's true. You're right. You're right. Yeah. Do you think they have Johnny Bravo? I haven't seen Johnny Bravo in so long.
Do you think they have that Yogi Bear traveling around the world teaching us about environmentalism?
Like, remember Yogi Bear and the Spruce Goose? Do you remember Yo Yogi from like the early 90s where you got like 3D glasses and you could watch it in 3D?
Yes, I do.
Not really a favorite of anybody's. How was your comic book year?
Different.
Okay.
There was a lot of rereading of some stuff and traveling back to different eras. Okay. I had a hard time picking some stuff, and then it got some different tractions. Yeah, it wasn't just me reading like, oh, I got to stay up with X-Men. I got to do this. It was a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, I did some of that as well. I went back and picked up series I dropped. I think this was the year of Wonder Woman for me because I hadn't read Wonder Woman in a while because I just wasn't really like about the Rebirth stuff. And I was like, I got to catch up. And so I was just like, boom, 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 boom. So I feel like I've maybe read more Wonder Woman than anything else. And probably I read more Wonder Woman in this calendar year than I have in like the rest of my life combined.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You've read more than me for sure. But Goodreads says I have 30 books in my Wonder Woman shelf.
Yeah. Well, as I recall, you were a lot more into the George Perez era than I was.
I did enjoy the George Perez stuff. And then at that time, I think it was still hard to find like previous trades. So I know I read some like 90s stuff, the Paradise Found, Paradise Lost ones.
Yeah, I've read that.
And then Donna Troy, the Gail Simone stuff. So
I feel like Wonder Woman is
where I fell off.
Yeah, it's just a different one. It's difficult, I think, to find the right balance because if you go too heavy on like the Themyscira and Amazon and like the mythology and stuff, it gets so bogged down. But if you don't do that, and she's just like trolling around DC with Steve Trevor, it's like, what's the point? Why are we doing this at all? So I don't know.
You know what? I did read that Michael Straczynski run that I didn't like.
Oh, you didn't like it?
But the big deal was her costume.
Yeah.
Jim Lee designed. So anyway, that's
it's
all
a cool
in the
costume.
past.
I've wanted to read it. I never have.
At one point last year, I read Wonder Woman Afterworld.
Oh, I did read that. Yeah.
It's a volume 1.
Yeah, it's a kooky era, but I think it finally settled into it.
Are we talking about the Wonder Woman you've read?
Let's
do
it. Let's do it. Let's start with some DC. The Wonder Woman that I picked was Wonder Woman: The Four Horsewomen by Steve Orlando, Jesus Marino, and Kieran McCowan. And this was so it's like the Rebirth stuff started. And you remember at the beginning of that, it was like, the first 7 issues were like Wonder Woman year 1, and the next 7 issues or whatever was like the current story, and then back.
Yeah, it was like it was the New 52 all over again.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. After a while, I just kind of got tired of that format, and I dropped away from it. So I started going again, and it went through some weird eras. This era is where like Cheetah has taken control of Themyscira, and so Wonder Woman's got to like fight back, and it's kind of this big.
How does that happen?
I don't know. I'm not sure. And it rolled into that whole Year of the Villain crossover, which I wasn't about, and I get irritated every time. Like it's like, oh, now you got to read a Year of the Villain, but I don't want to.
Year of the Villain, which was different than Forever Evil.
Yeah. I mean, different in name only. I feel like it's pretty much the same thing. But that and Dark Knight's Metal, like I just couldn't take any more. Like every book I was reading, it was like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
But I felt like the Four Horsewomen did kind of hit that mark where it was like we were getting the stuff, but I think like Cheetah's involvement and some of like the people Wonder Woman brought in, it felt very epic without feeling like oversaturated. Because sometimes, when it's just like event, it's hard to settle into it. But I felt like that for me was a good groove.
Okay. So where's Afterworlds in that? Because that's a volume 1. So Is that after all that Cheetah stuff?
Yeah, they all kind of run together now. I feel like maybe it
Because she
is.
dies and she's in Valhalla?
Yeah, because there's a whole thing too where she's like working with Thor. That's the one you're talking about, right? Where she's like
Yeah,
actually, yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
Becky Cloonan was the writer.
Yeah,
I just remember being like, oh, this is what Wonder Woman would be like if it was a Fables book.
yeah.
And it never clicked for me.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, I mean, I was okay with that, and I thought pairing her with Thor was interesting, but I finished it and was kind of like, but why? You know, and that's where I
Mm-hmm.
am actually. Afterwards, Worlds is like the most recent Wonder Woman thing that I read because
Oh,
there I kind of caught up with where I am in the rest of the timeline. So I
right.
like that. Hey, off topic, and I know we've talked a lot about the Black Label in the past. Did you read Aquaman Andromeda?
I have not read that. That is not a Black Label I read this year.
It's so
It's on my
weird.
list.
Okay, I don't know. It's like it looks really cool, but the story just like it never coalesces for me. I feel like Aquaman's not
Hmm.
in it. It's odd. Interested to hear what you think.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to keep up with the Black Label stuff, but they are hit and miss, as we will
They are.
discuss
They
right
are. Well,
now.
they're like 95% Batman also. So anytime it's
Yeah.
not a Batman, I feel like I gotta dive in.
Well, for the most part, I try to keep it to stuff I like,
Okay.
unless it's involving Batman or the Black Label.
Got it. Okay.
I'll start with one thing I did like, Rogues
Oh
by
yeah, yeah.
Joshua Williamson.
Yeah.
That was a Black Label, an Elseworld kind of tale about
Hmm.
the Flash's Rogues Gallery.
Yeah.
They are older, they're past their prime, they're not getting any big scores anymore,
Yeah.
and Captain Cold wants to do like one last job, so he gets as many of the rogues together as he can, and it's pretty brutal, but it's very, very good.
Yeah. I've seen that one a million times and I'm always like, oh, I gotta read it. And I haven't. So
Hmm.
I'll kick it up to the top.
Yeah, I actually sent it to a friend who doesn't really read much, but I thought this was a good one. And it's there's no Batman, there's no Joker, there's no Harley Quinn, so it's just
Wow.
the Flash's Rogues that goes a bit darker and has a pretty good ending.
Okay.
It's good, and it's surprising to me that Rogues was this good, but none of the Suicide Squad Black Label titles have been any good, which you would think would be the perfect place to do Suicide
Yeah,
Squad,
definitely.
but they did one called Blaze, Suicide Squad Blaze by Simon Spurrier.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
it was just bad. And there was also Get Joker, which was bad. I don't understand what's going on with that stuff. But Rogues scratches the itch that Suicide Squad comics should, and it was great.
I still haven't forgiven DC Comics for giving their only like major Superman Black Label story to the man who hates Superman more than anyone,
Right?
Frank
Yeah.
Miller.
Yep.
Because
The
there's also
Superman
like
Year One was
Superman.
awful.
It was awful, and there was also Superman versus Lobo, which was just like,
Oh, I haven't
okay,
read that one yet. Yeah.
that one is just like fine. It's just whatever,
Right.
But they really haven't done a lot, with Superman
Yeah.
in that regard. One that kind of falls into that chunky, crowded, mega event that I don't know, they're hit and miss. I really liked Infinite Frontier, which is by Josh Williamson and Aletha Martinez, who we had on both the All the Book Show and previously on X-Men. That one I thought was actually really good, and it pulled some from Grant Morrison's Multiversity and some just from like the other things going on. So it was like Alan Scott, it was the alt Superman. It was a bunch of characters kind of coming together, and I felt like even though it
Does
was
alt
kind of
Superman mean he has like a purple streak down the front half of his
no,
hair?
it's the Grant Morrison Superman, the Calvin
Oh,
Allen.
right. Okay.
Yeah. So, but that was the whole thing. It was like we were
Right.
looking at this alternate, like this multiverse
Yeah.
pocket, and it's like, well, what about us? Where do we fare and everything now?
Right.
So I liked that. I liked the story that it set up, and I have to like that's part of the reason why I was catching up on Wonder Woman because I wanted to kind of get naturally to where the rest of that story goes. But I liked Infinite Frontier quite a bit. Have you read it?
I remember picking it up and just like going through it and be like, no, I can't. I cannot
Yeah.
do this. Like it's 12
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah, I don't. Well, so there's like the main story, and then everybody got a book. I mean, there's the Superman, Wonder
Right.
Woman, Batman. Everybody got an Infinite Frontier book, and those some are good, some are not. It's just the way it goes. But I felt like the core story was solid.
Yeah, I just can't do any more DC multiverse story crossovers because I just don't know, and it makes me feel like I don't know, both an old fogey and a like newbie, just like, I don't know what Superman this is. I don't know what Batman this,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I typically feel the same way. That's why I'm including Infinite Frontier on the list, because it kind of changed my mind about it.
Yeah. Usually with Batman, I just don't care because I can just figure it out. I'm like, yeah, I know who these characters are.
Yeah, yeah.
So, unfortunately, I did read Tom King Batman this year. And I read 2 Tom King Batmans, and I'm ready for him never to write that character again. Him and Scott Snyder, they're done. They've said what they need to say. Stop having them write things.
Yeah. Yeah.
For these characters, at least.
Yeah.
Batman and Catwoman and Batman Killing Time. So Batman Catwoman, technically it's like you read it as it's the end of his Batman run, but because I think DC got a little like near the end of his run, they've made it a Black Label kind of Elseworlds thing.
Okay.
So you can read it that way, or it's its own thing.
Okay.
Either way, it's boring, and I hate it.
Okay.
And it's so long. It's just he said everything he has to say about Batman and Catwoman and their relationship.
Yeah.
Very early on in his run, and then he takes another 12 issues to say it all again 12 times.
Yeah. I feel like once you're going to build those characters up to the wedding and then not go through with the wedding, you have to give Batman Catwoman a nice long rest, because you teased it right up to the line and then you didn't do it. Did you read Catwoman Lonely City? Another Black Label thing.
No, I think it's still on my to-read list.
I think you'd like it. I mean, it plays a lot on nostalgia. It's a little slow in places, but, decent. I feel like it's a decent spotlight for Catwoman. Yeah.
Batman Killing Time is just kind of an exercise in nothing. It's just, it's a single issue tale stretched out to 6 issues.
Oh, okay.
I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads because of the art, which was very good. Yeah. But it really is just Killing Time. Tom King was just like, what if I could really emphasize the title to the reader? And I can't, not with King anymore.
I was vibing with James Tynion in the 4th for a while, but like Joker War was just exhausted me. I couldn't wade through it.
It wasn't until after Joker War that I got into it.
Okay.
The Ghost Stories and
Ghost Stories pretty solid.
Cowardly Lot, Ghost Stories, Cowardly Lot, and Fear State. Those ones I really enjoyed by him.
Okay,
and it wasn't really until with Ghost Stories I had to just I was reading it and middle of the way through I'm just like, you know what? I just have to adjust what he's doing with this character. It's fine. And then I started realizing he was kind of writing a cyberpunk Batman story, especially with Fear State. So once I kind of got into this very this is kind of an anime-influenced cyberpunk story set in Gotham.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was much more on board with it, and I thought Fear State was pretty good.
Yeah. While we're talking about authors, I did inadvertently get into Tom Taylor. I didn't even realize that he'd written a bunch of the stuff that I liked, but really liked all the Superman Son of Kal-El stuff.
Oh,
Did you read any of that? The Jonathan Kent series?
But I have picked up plenty of Tom Taylor.
Okay. Well, I mean, that whole Superman arc was kind of cool where Clark had to go off world for this whole thing with War World, which didn't really pan out the way I wanted it to. I was disappointed with that. And it sort of left John to be the Superman of Earth. And it's 3 volumes. It's pretty tight overall. I think they do a good job of kind of distinguishing the John Superman from the Clark Superman, but it still feels like Superman, which is super important. So that was a series that I was kind of anticipating, and I was glad when it was all out and available, so I could just pound through it, which I did, and was not disappointed.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't read those. I know the War World ones when it was coming out. I was like, oh, this might be a jumping on point for me. So I don't know I know you didn't like it that much.
No, but I could see you liking it a little bit more. I feel like it's more your speed.
Is Eric Roberts still playing
Mongol?
Mongol, thank you. Yes, Eric Roberts still voicing Mongol.
Yeah, let's say yes.
Tom Taylor wrote the all-new Wolverine series, which was very good. He wrote X-Men Red, which was very good, and he wrote Batman the Detective, which I really liked.
Oh, did I read that? Yeah, I think I read that. Yeah, I was okay with that. 3 stars. I 3-starred that.
Yeah. Other Batman I read this year, there was House of Gotham, which I think was 8 parts, but it's a collection. It's Shadows of the Bat. They were, quick little short things that were at the end of other Batman comics. Okay. And so this collects it. And it's just telling this story about this kid that grows up in Gotham and how it's a bad place to grow up. And just kind of tells his story growing up interacting with characters like Batman, but a lot of the villains, and how much it sucks to not be a mask or a cape in Gotham City.
Yeah.
So I thought it was just a really, like, it was by Matthew Rosenberg. It was just a real focused story that didn't overstay its welcome. So I enjoyed it. Nice. Beyond the White Knight came out as well.
Oh,
so I read Beyond the White Knight.
I really liked White Knight, but I didn't want more. I haven't read anything outside of the first one because I thought that was great. So
yeah, well, it's been diminishing returns every Sean Murphy's White Knight series. Yeah, Batman Beyond the White Knight. Yeah, I think I liked it a little bit more than the second one because I really don't care about Azrael.
Okay,
but like Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis is just on the cover.
Yeah.
And it's just not a lot of Batman Beyond Terry McGinnis stuff. And I really wanted more of that.
Yeah.
So it was fine. It still looks great, but you've not gotten more out of it by giving us more of this stuff.
Yeah.
I did read Chip Zdarsky. Am I saying that right?
I always say Zdarsky, but who knows?
Chip Zdarsky. He's on Batman right now. And I read Batman Failsafe, which was volume 1 of his series. And I really, really liked it. It had like a lot of good stakes. It had a lot of the Bat family showing up in cool ways. And then near the end, it just tried to go a little bit like too big. And it lost a lot of the stuff that it was doing well. I haven't read volume 2, but I really liked what he did in volume 1. I wish he had just kept it. Everybody's always trying to make a really big story these days. And I just liked what was going on at the beginning.
Yeah. I haven't read him in a while, but I really liked I liked his run on Jughead, and I really liked his Spectacular Spider-Man, and Spider-Man Life Story was super cool.
Yeah, so Spider-Man Life Story was good.
Yeah, I saw him on Batman, and I definitely want to get there just because I'm a fan. But yeah,
we will talk more about Chip Zdarsky later.
Ooh.
But yeah, so this is the Batman title that he's on, which I believe he took over from James Tynion.
Got it. Okay.
The fourth. So also Abyss by Joshua Williams, which was volume 6 of Batman right after Tynion left, was pretty good too. It was the Bat Club people, right?
Okay.
That was fun. I dug that stuff.
I'll tell you my favorite DC comic that I read. I'm giving it to Tom Taylor's Nightwing Volume 1, Leaping into the Light. I just it's been a while since I've really loved a Nightwing book. And it pains me. Like every time I've had to give a Nightwing book.
What was the last one you liked? Did you like Grayson?
I appreciated Grayson. I was ready to be done with it. I feel like it kind of lasted too long, but the arc where it was like Dick Grayson gets shot and doesn't remember, and so now he's Rick Grayson and he's not really Nightwing, and then there's like a team of Nightwings, and like that lasted forever, and I hated it. So I was really glad Tom Taylor's on the book, and I thought the first volume was super cool. It had everything I needed. It was like felt kind of old school, like the Chuck Dixon era a little bit.
Right.
But we had Superman, we had Barbara Gordon, we had Tim Drake. Like it was all good stuff. So I'm very excited about where that book is headed.
Okay. Nice. What's that first volume called?
Leaping into the Light.
Leaping into the Light. Yeah.
Really good.
Good. I saw your review on Goodreads. It was like, finally, this national nightmare of ours where Nick is not happy with a Nightwing book is finally over.
Yeah.
Years.
I kind of like the new Robin stuff too. The new Robin stuff where he's like, on this island and he's separate, and I like where all that stuff is going too.
Not the Damian stuff.
Yeah, the Damian stuff. I like it.
Oh, like the fight. Yes. I can't even remember what it's called.
It's like the Lazarus tournament and all that.
Yes, Lazarus tournament.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really fun. That's also Joshua.
It has been a slow burn with Nick and Damian, but it's happened.
That's true. I've got you to thank.
It was Super Sons, right?
It was Super Sons.
Yeah.
It was Super Sons. I loved that Super Sons movie too. I watched that in January of this year. It was great. Did you ever watch that?
I have not watched that yet. I've been kind of slow with catching up on the DC animated stuff.
Yeah,
I watched that Flash Justice Society, and I thought that was very good.
Okay. Yeah.
So
yeah, I watched the Catwoman one. I watched the Supergirl one. I haven't really loved them either, but Super Sons I thought was really good.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about movies and TVs?
I only wrote down one movie because I felt like there was only one movie worth talking about. But go ahead.
Okay. I think the best superhero offering of the year was the Marvels, which I really loved.
Oh boy.
Oh, you didn't like the Marvels?
I did not like the Marvels.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No,
I
it's all
won't
right.
poo on it though. I'm not here to poo on stuff today, except for Tom King's Batman.
Yeah, except for Tom. Yeah, I mean, and Scott Snyder. I mean, they've had their time, so get out.
I didn't even read a Scott Snyder Batman. I still had to drag him under them. Yeah.
What I loved about the Marvels was I loved the way their powers were linked. I liked all the choreography of those fights when they're like first when it's clumsy and then when they start figuring it out. I thought the tone was really good. I thought it was genuinely funny. I felt like it was good in terms of their chemistry and the relationship, the way it moved the story along a little bit. I had a great time with it, and I've been sort of on a going out of obligation to Marvel like for a while, but I really had a fun time with the Marvels.
Yeah.
I have a few honorable mentions. I don't know how you feel about these, so I'm just going to tell you. The Flash. How do you feel about the Flash?
I find, having now watched it,
Yeah,
I'm less annoyed with the stuff that annoyed me and more. I almost find it like a beautiful disaster.
True.
Like I don't know, like when you know you shouldn't date somebody because they're a bit too broken, but you still can't help yourself because there's stuff you like about them.
Yeah.
The Flash.
I thought it started rough and like the CGI and like the rescuing the babies and stuff was just like almost unwatchable to me. But once it finally settles in, I mean, I was excited to see Michael Keaton. I was excited to see Supergirl. I really liked that take on Supergirl. So I don't know that it's one that I'm going to be like, oh, I got to rewatch The Flash. But I don't know. For what it could have been, for what I was worried that it would be, I ended up enjoying it quite a bit.
It is fascinating that there's only one Flash movie out there. It took 20 years and it has no Flash villains in it.
True. That is true.
So I don't know. I mean, I've seen it said multiple times, like, what if DC, as soon as they had announced Ezra Miller was the Flash, had just made a Flash versus the Rogues movie? So like they announced him in 2014, had that out in 2015, smooth sailing.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yep.
I don't know. It's crazy.
I agree. I mean, part of me, I'm kind of, I don't know. I mean, I was excited. Like I came around on Black Adam, and when Superman shows up in Black Adam, I was like, okay, let's do it. And I kind of felt that way a little bit too. And they were like, all right, Michael Keaton's going to be the Nick Fury. I was like, that's weird. I didn't see that coming. But then I was kind of like, let's roll the dice. Let's see what happens. And we didn't get to see any of those things. So
in 10 years, when there are kids just starting to watch these movies now, we should only show them the end credit scenes, the stingers, and not explain it so they have no idea what is happening at the end of Morbius or Black Adam.
Well, no one knows what was happening at the end of Morbius. Definitely not Michael Keaton.
Word. Yeah, he's like, is this part of the Flash? Am I in the Flash movie here?
Yeah,
Morbius
that was
is
straight
the
up
Flash
elder
villain,
abuse.
right?
I feel like having that happen. Here's one that was kind of a sleeper for me because I was not big into the first of these movies, but I found Shazam: Fury of the Gods like very fun.
Okay.
How do you feel about Shazam: Fury of the Gods?
I liked it less than the first, and
Really?
I was thinking like, oh, I'll still get it on Blu-ray, but I kind of was thinking like, if I want to watch something with Shazam, I'm probably just going to watch the first one because I don't know. The second one just has, it's weird that Billy is in it for like 2 scenes and none of the really important scenes, specifically the very end.
Yeah, it definitely should be Billy at the end. Yeah. Plus, I mean, I like that Billy actor 1,000 times more than I like Zach Levi's like.
It's just weird
goofy,
because
like poop pants kid version of Shazam, but
that's where the heart is, and it just. It wasn't there. I mean, it's not terrible. I don't think it deserved to bomb the way it did, but there was stuff I liked about it. But I guess, in the future, I'll probably just watch the first one, and then we'll see if I'm interested enough to watch the second one.
I really like the villains. You know, I like seeing Lucy Liu, and I like that whole team. I thought, the cameos that were in it were pretty fun. I guess I went into it with like nothing, and I was like, yeah, okay. I mean, I also like Blue Beetle. I'll say I like Blue Beetle.
Well, Blue Beetle's the only one I put on my list because it was the only one that like surprised me by being good.
It is good.
Also, I was just in it, and I felt like it was doing something different. The fact that like all his family know about it, like from the get-go, and are in on it. That felt, but they're also not all superpowered. It just felt very different from the other stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
So it was a little redundant with some stuff. Like we had seen a lot of that stuff with Iron Man or Spider-Man or whatever. Yeah. But I felt like it said like, this is the stuff that works. with superhero movies, so let's just do it well. And there were some movies that didn't just do it well this year.
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel like we're getting a lot of people being like, superhero movies are dead, people are done. And I think there's truth to that, but I think it's because the quality has just dropped off. Like, a big reason why the MCU was so big was because you could go to Captain America Winter Soldier or Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and you were going to get like really good quality blockbuster stuff, as opposed to G.I. Joe, Retaliation, Battleship, like the other blockbuster offerings were just so bad. But now it's kind of gone around. Now we have Top Gun Maverick and Avatar Way of Water. We had Barbie and Oppenheimer this year.
Yeah.
Who has time to waste on Ant-Man Quantumania?
Oh my gosh. I hate Quantumania.
You have John Wick 4 just being like, how can we make this even bigger than the first three? And then you have Aquaman 2, like, how can we just do nothing for an hour and a half?
I know. I was really disappointed with Aquaman 2 because, I loved that first one. It was such a huge hit. And like, I don't know how you can have Jason Momoa like headline a movie and have the movie be boring, have it just be like, move it on. I mean, any movie that includes a Martin Short cameo as a weird undersea mobster, I guess I have to give at least a couple of stars to.
It doesn't help that the Aquaman movie, the first one, did almost everything that you'd want in an Aquaman movie. Like, did it all. Like, you had both Black Manta and Ocean Master, and you had Mera, you had them traveling, you had that big battle and all that stuff at the end. And it's like, with Captain America, you had the first Avenger, which had his World War II stuff, and then you had Winter Soldier, was like how he's coping with the modern world. And then after that, like, what else is there to tell for Captain America? So his third movie becomes a mini Avengers movie.
Right.
And I feel like Aquaman, they just didn't have anything for the second.
No.
If there is an Aquaman villain that isn't Ocean Master or Black Manta, go ahead and tell me who they are now.
You have to comb the Filmation archives because they kept tossing out new Aquaman villains all the time.
Yeah. I kept waiting. I'm like, I thought even like the underwater scenes were harder to follow and they were messier than the first movie.
Definitely.
It was just so weird. I don't understand it.
But you're right though. I mean, every visual that we wanted, we got the octopus playing the drums. We got that big like sweeping kiss with him and Mera. We got all of the underwater fight stuff. Like all the cool stuff there is that. And this was just like, well, let's just do Ocean Master and Black Manta again. Throw in more Randall Park, I guess. I
guess it's a thing where maybe they should have done what the Flash did and just be like, okay, who's another character supervillain we can use?
Yeah. Right.
I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Have Brainiac decide he's going into the ocean or something. I'd watch that.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. I also loved Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur on Disney Plus, so just gotta toss
I was gonna say My Adventures with Superman has been very enjoyable.
Okay.
There's that tweet that goes around a lot where it says, will that be a soup or salad? And Clark Kent is like, super salad, just a regular salad for me, please. They're like, Sally's like, a regular salad for a regular man. And like, My Adventures with Superman has that tweet's energy almost every episode. And I don't know, I like it. I like the weird kind of, this is for kids, it's not an anime, but we have anime elements, but it's funny, but it also just has Superman, like he has glowing energy sometimes. I don't know. I really dug it.
I wanted to like it so bad, and I don't know. It never quite landed for me. I don't know if it was the voice cast or just
weird.
I don't know.
I guess I'll also shout out The Boys, which I watched this year. I didn't even think to put that down. I hate the comic. I think it's so stupid and dumb. But the show, I watched all 3 seasons this year.
Okay.
And I watched some of Gen V or Gen 5, whatever you want to call it. But it's just not as good.
I tried to get into Invincible season 2 because I love those comics. And then, so many years in between seasons. I started season 2 was just kind of like, I don't know. Like I've got the comics. I don't know that I really need to see it, again. So
I guess I'll also shout out Guardians 3, which I thought, which also wasn't as good as the first 2, and that was the problem. I felt like Guardians 3 was just too messy. Like it had so many different plots it was juggling, and none of them, it didn't stick the landing for me. Mainly the Adam Warlock stuff. I didn't feel like that really ever found a connection to the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I think that's true.
That's it.
I don't know if there was other plans that they had in mind that didn't come to fruition, or if they were
Yeah.
setting up something else, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I thought that was a pretty satisfying conclusion to that trilogy overall.
Yeah, it was a good time.
I'm playing the Guardians of the Galaxy game right now. I like that a lot.
Oh, nice. I really wanted to play Marvel Midnight Suns, but my machine can't handle it.
I know, same.
I'll also throw it. I've been playing just Marvel Snap nonstop.
Still, okay.
Yeah, I'm still playing Marvel Snap. I love my Destroy deck. I have basically an all gold Destroy deck in Marvel Snap. I just like the characters in the Destroy. I like that you can get Venom, Carnage, and Wolverine in there. So anyway, just a lot. Too much.
I like Marvel Snap quite a bit. I was never like, I hate this game now. I just stopped playing it. But it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. What do you like about Marvel?
At the beginning of the year, I was like, let's just go and read the X-Men stuff that I didn't read at the time when I was getting into X-Men comics, because mainly I could only ever afford, for a while anyway, like 3 issues a week. So I was going to buy the main titles of things, you know? Yeah. So I couldn't read Gambit or Nightcrawler that came around this time. I couldn't read Emma Frost or that Chamber miniseries, but this year I read them. Shout out to Chamber, which was a 4-issue Brian K. Vaughan story that's really, really good. But really, it was the Emma Frost comic by Carl Bollers that was like shocking how good it was.
Really?
And the past couple of years, I've been reading a lot of the New Mutant stuff.
Yeah.
Because I never did. So I had read, the Claremont New Mutants and the Louise Simonson. And then I picked up the New Mutants Back to School, which had started around the time Grant Morrison took over.
Yeah.
Had never read it, but I've always liked seeing those characters show up in other stuff. They always seemed interesting. It's interesting because the cover shows like the classic New Mutants, but it's really about like Elixir and Surge, all those newer mutant characters who showed up around that time. Good stuff. And then it got taken over by Fred Kyle and Chris Yost, and they just turned it into, a meat fest. People were just being killed and butchered all the time. It just got to the point where it was just violence overkill, and any characters you kind of liked were getting killed. Doing that put me in the mood to reread New X-Men, and then I just kept going. So I read New Mutants, I read the New X-Men, I read the New Mutants again that came out that was actually pretty good. What's his name? Zeb Wells took over for a bit, and his was really good. And then Dan Abnett and Lanning, they took over, and it wasn't as good. But the Zeb Wells New Mutant stuff was really good. But then I just kept going. So I did reread Age of Apocalypse, but I just kept going to the point where I was reading Messiah Complex, Necrosha, Age of X, Second Coming, because I was just trying to follow those stuff. A lot of them stood up. Age of Apocalypse doesn't hit as hard now in my late 30s as it did as a teenager, but I feel like Grant Morrison's X-Men, like those first 3 issues, there's still like so much energy and newness and excitement in those that still just like comes off the page now, that it gets kind of sad reading it because like this doesn't continue.
Yeah.
But a lot of them were better than I remember, or just as okay as I remember. So that was part of this. Just like, all right, I'm just going to keep reading these characters. So the ones I liked, those newer ones like Elixir and Prodigy, they kind of disappear again, and then it becomes the classic New Mutants characters again. Yeah. So there's some ups and downs, but good stuff there.
Yeah, mine are pretty X-Men heavy as well. One that I finally went back and finished the run was Amazing X-Men, which I really liked, particularly that World War Wendigo volume.
Oh, yeah, the Jason Aaron stuff.
Yeah.
Did he keep writing it for those last 2 volumes?
No, but that's when Craig Kyle and stuff takes over.
Okay.
For the later stuff. But I really liked the Wendigo stuff. I liked
that was funny.
Alpha Flight come in. I thought that was really fun, and I enjoyed the whole Amazing X-Men run. And I got to the end of that, and I was like, well, where do you go from here? Because
the Once in Future Juggernaut, that's the third volume. Yeah, I enjoyed that. The second volume, that World War Wendigo, is just funny because they've got these characters like Rockslide and Colossus who can't be hurt and bit, so they're just standing there dealing with them getting like gnawed at, and they're just kind of annoyed about it, and they keep having to like punt Wendigo Wolverine off into the distance.
Yep. That was definitely my favorite. The arc in the center there was really fun.
That first Nightcrawler one, the Hunt for Nightcrawler, Something like that. It's very pirate themed. I had a great time with that one.
Me too. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I also read Greg Pak's Storm, which has been around for a while, and I just hadn't read it. And I read those 2 volumes and thought it was just like really cool. Have you read that?
Yeah, I did read that.
I've read some solo Storm stuff over the years, but I felt like this was just a really good showcase for the character.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed the story. I wanted more. That was the thing that I guess sort of frustrated me in my X-Men reading this year, was that I felt like I got it stuck on these cul-de-sacs where it's like there's not a clear next step. Because after Amazing, you have like Extraordinary, and the Extraordinary just dovetails into the Inhumans versus the X-Men, which like no one cares about. And then the team splits and everything. So
the 2010s for the X-Men, like after the Avengers versus X-Men, and then before the Krakoa era, it's just a lot of like stalled series and redirections and. Yeah, it was a messy, rough time where, you're drinking sand to get to the water for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of stuck in the like the relaunch of All New X-Men still with like the time displaced. And it just slowed me way down because I liked those early Bendis stories. But now I'm just like, why are we still doing
there's the X-Men Blue, or I think it is just called All New X-Men or whatnot.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who wrote it, but it was really just mind-numbingly dumb.
Yeah,
and then Cullen Bunn came in with X-Men Blue and brought Magneto in and did some Havoc stuff in there, and I really like that one. But
well, that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to that era, and I just waiting some turns.
He kind of turned it into also like a sequel-ish series to his Magneto series, which was very good.
Oh, I've read some of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Still speaking of the X-Men, I also like. From that Grant Morrison era. I don't know if you ever remember Peter Milligan's X-Force, where he took over the X-Force title in name only and then introduced all these weirdo characters. It's where Dupe first originates from.
Okay.
And it's the real world with superheroes. They're basically trying to... All these mutants on this team, they're usually not great people. They're just in it for the celebrity. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek with a bit of earnest superheroics in it. So that's been a good one to go back to. Well, because I hadn't read that either. And a lot of people really like it. And it is very standalone. You don't have to read anything else that's happening in the X-Men at that time to read that. And it has this very kind of like Andy Warhol pop retro art style to it. But I read X-Men Forever this year for the first time. This is where Chris...
Like Claremont came back or something? And
Chris Claremont continuing the X-Men from basically X-Men #3, the Jim Lee one. So that 3-parter Mutant Genesis. And it isn't really, what he would have done right after. And a lot of characters kind of are like, well, why aren't they on the team anymore? Because they were on the team and you were writing them. Where's Jubilee? She's just gone. But
being a vampire? Is it during her vampire phase?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Sometimes it's a bit annoying, but there's just a lot of like weirdo energy to it all. And he does do stuff that he had talked about wanting to do with characters. Like we still have a younger Storm and an adult Storm going on. He takes out certain characters that he probably wouldn't have killed previously and done all this. So there's a lot of fun to be had in that. And I really enjoyed it. It was bummed it was over just because there was something really enjoyable just having like Claremont writing the X-Men again, but free of continuity, but also like in his own continuity. So it wasn't just him writing like this Elseworld what if story. You had to, work around the fact that this isn't really what he would have done. Sure. But once you got on board with it, it was a good time.
So does it conclude? Like, does it have sort of like
it does end? Not. No, it ends, but there are plenty of loose ends that just never got resolved. So which is too bad.
X-Men Forever and Ever.
Yeah, X-Men Forever and Ever.
And ever.
XOXO.
I sort of fell behind on Spider-Man, and I did like a big burst of catching up. I read a lot of the Zeb Wells stuff, The Amazing Spider-Man Beyond, where it's Ben Reilly like coming back, like Peter's out of the commission again, and Ben Reilly is the main Spider-Man. I thought that was a really cool arc.
This time, Peter takes over Doc Ock's body.
Right? Yeah. Who wouldn't want to? He's got a date Aunt May, but that stuff comes into the Dark Web crossover, which is Spider-Man and the X-Men. Well, that's a really cool thing. And, I kind of came in from a Spider-Man perspective. And by the end of it, I was like, well, I need to know what the heck is going on with these New Mutants. Like all the stuff with the Goblin Queen and everything was really interesting to me. But I thought Dark Web was a really solid crossover and managed to keep all of the pieces together, which is pretty impressive. It's also Christmas set, so it's the holiday season. It's not too late.
Finally.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I didn't know that. That's funny.
2 of these, World War Wendigo and Dark Web, do both feature a team up of Spider-Man, Iceman, and Firestar from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
But just like doing that, yeah.
That's not why both of them are on the list. It's just a coincidence.
That's funny.
But it's also true. It is true that happens. Yeah. Any other Marvels of note?
Oh, yeah. Wait. Okay. I say, oh, yeah, like I'm 100% sure.
You're really confident. You seemed really confident about it.
So I started reading Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four.
Oh.
It was surprisingly entertaining. You do have to put yourself in the mindset. You have to be like, okay, this is the beginning of the Marvel Universe, but it is also like the beginning of writing superhero comics like this. So there's a lot of like, oh boy, poor, like Sue Storm does not come across well, and nor the way people treat Sue Storm in this. I also read some of the earlier Stan Lee Daredevil stuff, and you can tell when Stan Lee is in charge of writing it, because even though he's trying to like modernize superhero comics, he's still doing it in this frame of like what was popular before that. So it's still like, what if Daredevil was in a lost jungle? What if the Fantastic Four were pirates and stuff? And sometimes it works, and sometimes it's really boring. Like, I don't want to see pinstripe criminals, and I don't want to see Daredevil in a castle. But the Fantastic Four series, there's some banana stuff in it. Like, I could go on just a single issue. But it's interesting reading it and watching them realize, like, how they can work with serialized storytelling. And once they really do start, it really starts to pick up. And you can tell when Jack Kirby starts doing his thing, because it goes from, oh no, I can't pay the rent on the Baxter building, to the Watcher telling Human Torch to be like, you're going through untime now. Don't touch them lest you cease to exist in the time web or something.
That feels,
once the Inhumans show up and Galactus shows up and Surfer shows up and all these other characters show up, you're like, okay, here's Jack Kirby taking over. And then Jack Kirby realizes he's not getting the rights anymore, so he kind of pulls back and then stands back to like, oh, it's the Pinstripe guy being like, hey, Fantastic Four, you hit me with your Fantastic card and I'm suing you. And they're like, no, we didn't. He's like, but I took a picture or something. I don't know.
I love the added, like, the character work you're doing, pulling up the lapels. Hey, I like it.
Yeah.
That's good. We tried to read the John Byrne Fantastic Four stuff together, and we petered out. We got to get back to it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think after you read the Stan Lee Kirby stuff, you just go to the John Byrne stuff, because nothing is really as definitive there. But it's one of those things where if you're in the right place, those are pretty fun. I feel like it's a lot more fun than I had originally thought it was, and even read it when I was younger.
Yeah.
Whereas like Stan Lee's Spider-Man, and I always felt like that just gets it right from the beginning. The Fantastic Four kind of find their footing.
Do you remember back in episode 6 of Comic Book Coffee Break when I read that Fantastic Four for the quarter bin? And it was like right in the middle of like a phony read, and the crazy things are going on. I went back and read that whole volume to make up for it. But that was like during a very soap opera kind of phase of the Fantastic Four that I think is not remembered very well.
I also read some Daredevil.
Oh.
Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil run, specifically.
Okay. Yeah.
Look, it's fine. People seem to just love this freaking series. On Goodreads, it has super hot. People love it. And it would be nice if my memory wasn't good, but like you read it and you're just like, Daredevil dealing with his secret identity. Bendis did this. Daredevil, the mayor of New York, Chris Cornell, just did this last run. Superheroes are now made illegal and are being put in jail. Civil War just did this.
Right.
It's all this stuff that Daredevil's in jail. He like goes to jail. It's like Ed Brubaker started his run with that. That's how Bendis ended his, and Brubaker started it. It's just like, it used to be that like knowing continuity could be rewarding, and I feel like now it's more punishing because if I hadn't read any Daredevil before then, I'd be like, this is so good, but all this stuff has happened before.
Maybe I need to read it then because I haven't read very much Daredevil.
Maybe. And you like Zdarsky. I felt like his Kingpin was really boring. And Daredevil is just, he writes Daredevil just like Daredevil doesn't work. He has these characters making these claims, and then they switch gears, and there's never really a clear point of why did they change their mind. Like for the beginning of it, Daredevil's like, Matt Murdock is like, Daredevil doesn't work, so I can't be Daredevil anymore. And then suddenly he's Daredevil again. It's like, well, now why does this work? Also, he brings in Mike Murdock. It's just like, stop touching this character. It's not. There's no way to make it work in any way. I hate it. So again, this is fine, but it never really landed for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, the art in Daredevil was good.
You need to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind yourself and get rid of your memories.
But
so you can enjoy again.
I want to get to the point where characters like Daredevil and Punisher and Moon Knight can just fight crooks and just like do these single issue stuff where they're just being vigilantes. Like Bendis' whole Daredevil run was that, and nobody seems to be able to do that anymore.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I mean, going back to our talk about the Black Label, I was kind of looking forward to that just because the concept of doing small stories again, like even maybe on a grander scale, but if you don't have to constantly be setting up the next arc,
Yeah. Anywho, I think that's it for me in Marvel.
Okay. I have a few like non big two, so I'm gonna run through them for you. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. Had a great time with that. Loved it a lot.
I read that last year.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun.
I'm disappointed that they're making a sequel to that, much like White Knight. Like I liked it for what it was. I don't really want to explore that world anymore. I don't want a prequel sequel. I don't think I'll read that. But The Last Ronin, I felt like was really really interesting.
Yeah.
I read this one when I was visiting you, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Pink by Brendan Fletcher. It's a Pink Ranger story. I read this because we watched Power Rangers Once and Always, Now and Forever.
Once and Always. That's it. Yep.
Always. Boy.
Always. Forever.
How did you feel about that? Did you like that special?
It was fine. I don't ever want to see something like that again, but it was fine.
Yeah. That's how I feel. Yeah. I watched it and I was like, yeah, this is what Power Rangers felt like. So here's a little 45-minute episode with old people.
Trying to get around the fact that 2 of the main cast are dead.
Yeah, boy, to be like, well, we got Billy and Zach. Let's do it anyway. It's a bold move. Bold move.
Yeah.
But they did it, and we watched it, and I had a good time. And then I read this Pink Ranger one. Anything else on your fringe list here?
I've got so many stuff, man. I still got a list.
Let me have it. Let me have it.
I started reading Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Is that Kyle Higgins? The whole thing?
Probably. A lot of Kyle Higgins.
Yeah, Kyle Higgins. I know you don't like Kyle Higgins.
I don't. I'm sorry.
But this Power Rangers comics, it's good stuff.
Okay.
So,
all right.
This was the year I gave Criminal by Ed Brubaker a second chance because I read the first volume when it came out, and I gave it 2 stars because I remember finding it boring and I was not into it at all. I guess I had to grow up a little bit. I guess I had to mature because I reread it mainly because of Reckless, and I wanted more Reckless, but there wasn't. And I read through all the available Criminal comics there were to read by Brubaker, and loved them all.
Yeah, I read the first volume, and I didn't love it, but I intended to read more. So, do you think the first volume was bad, or you just didn't like it at the time?
No, the first volume is good. I gave it 4 stars this time.
That's cool.
So, do you have more?
I read 10 volumes of Spy Family. Have you read that?
Spy? No, the manga.
Yeah.
I did not read that, but I know it's popular.
It's got a funny premise where it's like they're kind of forced to pretend to be a family. Like the kid, the wife, the husband, they each have their own reasons for needing this thing to work, and nobody is really telling each other what it is except the kid is telepathic, so she knows everything that's going on. So she's sort of playing into what he needs and what she needs and trying to make it all work so that they can stay together. So it's it's pretty entertaining, and it's the kind of thing where like those wheels can just keep spinning, but not in like an irritating way. And I had a lot of fun with that. And I think I've read everything that's in English so far, so I'm gonna keep up with it.
Cool. I don't know if there's a anime for that yet. There probably is. Maybe we haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
It's out on Blu-ray, and I watched a bunch of it on Hulu. Works really well.
Yeah. All right. Boy, I read Witchblade.
Oh.
For the first time.
Okay.
This is such a boring book. I guess it's a series some people say gets better when other people take over. Not interested. I can now say I've read Witchblade, and I'm no better for it.
Cross it off the list.
Usagi Yojimbo left Dark Horse and went to Image, but it has lost nothing. Doing that. It's still good. Never read a bad Usagi Yojimbo. I read a lot of Mark Millar this year.
Thought you don't like that.
Yes, I do. I'm weird.
Sorry. Okay.
Well, he can be very hit and miss with me these days with his Millarverse stuff.
Yeah.
But I do like Mark Millar. I like his comments. But the thing is, when I don't like what he's doing, it is really bad. Magic Order is one of the better ones out right now, even though it still has some of those dumb things he does. But I like that. I read Super Crooks as well, and that was really entertaining. I read all the Jupiter Legacy books. They are good and dumb at times.
Okay. All right.
I know what I'm going to get with Mark Millar.
True.
Nothing too deep. It's going to be people enjoying whatever superpowers they have, and sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not good. Nightclub wasn't good, but Huck and Superior, those are good.
Like Huck.
Magic Order is good. Starlight, Chrononauts 2, Nightclub, bad. MPH, fine. He did Nemesis back in the day, and then he rebooted it, basically redid the whole thing, like Nemesis, the original, never existed.
Okay.
Hated both. It's basically what if Batman was a villain kind of thing.
Okay.
But last night, I decided to read Big Game, Mark Millar and Pepe Larraz.
Okay.
This is Mark Millar doing a crossover with all his Millarverse stuff.
Everybody.
Going back to Wanted and Kingsman and Kick-Ass to Ambassadors and Nightclub and all the newer stuff.
Wow.
And it's basically the villains had made everybody forget superheroes exist, and they're trying to do it again. It's very lizard brain entertaining at times, but not something where I'm like, wow, Kick-Ass is teaming up with the Ambassador?
Yeah, I wish that I had like a thing that was really like, this is the one for me this year, but I don't know. I was kind of scattered and just like trying different things, and nothing was really like the breakout read of the year for me.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I mean, that's how I felt at the beginning. That's why I did that X-Men thing, just because I was so like, I don't know what to read. I guess I'll go back to like the X-Men side titles, like the auxiliary titles that were happening in 2002, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, a big part of it was just rereading all those X-Men stories too. So
yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of why I did so much Wonder Woman, because like I was just kind of getting so mired in like continuity and crossovers and stuff. I was like, well, I've read everything kind of around this, so this will be a safe place for me to go, you know.
Well, I got lucky with like runs, like because I liked Criminal Volume 1, I had like, 6 volumes of that I could read because I liked because I was in a Mark Millar mood. I had a bunch of his older stuff I could read, Fantastic Four, Turtles, got that kind of stuff. It wasn't a lot of me following, I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't a lot of current stuff. I mean, Mark Millar's stuff and that Chip Zdarsky Daredevil was like the most recent stuff. I mean, with current X-Men, I'm still in 2021. So, it has got, like, I get on Marvel Unlimited sometimes, and I'm just like, oh, I can't be bothered right now.
Yeah,
so
I know. It is tricky. I kind of reached a point in Superman where I was, like, so caught up that I would have to be, like, waiting for the next issue, and I was like, I can't do that. So I kind of pulled back. because I want to read it like in a chunk when I can complete stories and stuff.
Yeah,
so,
that's me with
I don't know.
Yeah. I forgot to give a shout out to Godzilla in Hell.
You certainly did. You certainly did. I don't think you did even
4 issues of just Godzilla. It starts with him in hell, and then it's him going through hell, and at the end, maybe he gets out of hell. And it's basically dialogueless because it's just Godzilla in hell, but it's freaking metal.
Okay. Just because that this is always your favorite part of the show, I have a quarter bin selection for you. Are you ready for it?
We've been doing this for hours.
I know, I'm sorry, but I just real quick. Action Comics number 444, 1975. The Black Canary is dead. Art and story by Mike Grell. Written by Elliot S. Maggin, who we interviewed. He was eating a bowl of spaghetti, but we interviewed him on the All the Book Show.
Maggin and Grell. I met Grell at a comic convention.
I know. You got him to sign Green Lantern: The Wonder Year for me. I'm very excited.
Yes. Anywho, all right. Maggin and Grell teaming up.
Maggin and Grell.
You've been waiting your whole life to read.
Okay, so Green Arrow gets this message that the Black Canary has been murdered, but he doesn't really believe it. The police, however, do have proof because they got something on cassette. So he goes down to the station, he listens to the cassette, it sounds legit, and not only is there a cassette, but there's a lock of hair, but it's from a blonde wig, which Black Canary does wear, but you wouldn't know that unless Black Canary's identity was revealed, right? So he thinks, okay, maybe it's real. So he wanders out in the street, and he's approached by this local guy, and the local guy's like, you got to talk to my grandson. He's fallen into the gang life, and it's up to you. So Green Arrow, obviously distraught here, is like, well, I better do it. So he goes to him, and here's direct quote, listen, Tom, all you'll get from this social club of yours is a box seat at the morgue. Message is not well received. The gang is too powerful, too connected. It's not getting through. This reminds Green Arrow of the way he failed with Speedy during the whole drug thing. Meanwhile, he sees a fancy man walking down the street with, fancy suit, does not belong in the neighborhood. He decides to follow him, and direct quote again, son of a beaver, he's led into an ambush. Fight, tussle, Green Arrow still wins, heads back to the police station, describes the person he saw as to the sketch artist. Turns out this is Peter Lazenby, who's a bigwig in the drug cartel, along with Mr. Lucker, who's like the local contact. So Green Arrow takes it upon himself to roll in on Lucker. He tosses a glass coffee table at him, demanding answers. No luck. Eat mothballs, Arrow, is what Lucker says. So Green Arrow drops the threat and is like, oh, you better watch out. Heads out. A sobbing Arrow can only think of Dinah. That filthy pig's gonna pay for what he did to Dinah. Find out what happens to Black Canary in Dead or Alive in the next issue, which I never did because I only had this one because I got it from a quarter bin. The end.
So this is Mike Grell drawing the character, but this is before he was writing the character.
Well, it says art and story by Mike Grell.
Okay.
No, this was just a backup in Action Comics. The main story was Superman being accused of murdering Green Lantern. So there's a lot of death happening.
So fun.
Okay. Any New Year's resolutions? Any series that you want to read in 2024?
I was going to ask you the same thing. Do you have stuff that you're directioning yourself towards this year?
Yeah, I mean, I want to get to the stuff that Infinite Frontier was teeing up. I'm going the distance with Wonder Woman. I'm excited about Tom Taylor's Nightwing. So yeah, I think there's a pretty decent amount of stuff that I'm looking forward to. You?
I mean, there's the part of me that's still like, I need to catch up on all this Krakoa stuff.
Yeah.
And every time I find out something new about it, I'm like, boy, this really isn't for me.
I mean, you loved Hellions, wasn't?
Yeah, that was. I do love Hellions. Yeah, Zeb Wells was doing that. I usually like Greg Dugan.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll like it once he starts doing stuff. And X-Men Red sounds cool and all that. So.
Okay, well, I guess until next year, we'll see where you are then.
All right.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Is this how we're saying goodbye
to
everybody? Oh, bye.
Yeah, we're saying goodbye. Yeah.
Bye.